Podtailers. Welcome back to another episode of Podtail Podcast. In the previous episode, nilikuwa nimejam tu sana. So I decided to come back with a lighter note. Yenye haina hasira mingi. But tunarudi huko. We are going to go back. We're going to bring episode 2, 3, 4, whatever amount we need. In today's episode, I have a very important guest. Important in my life. Ashazaku. Akona humility complex. Chana na huyu. I have a very important guest here, and we're going to be talking about a very potent conversation. The amount of things we'll discuss here is going to be monumental. Sawa. So get your seatbelts ready because ni kuenda mbio hivi gari ya miraa. Before we start, I'd like my guest to introduce himself, and then we'll talk about what we want to talk about, and we'll have this great convo. Guest, hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
Who are you and why are you here?
Okay, I was abducted.
Is that you, Kasongo?
Yeah, so my name is James Gaiko Keshoe. I'm I'm in Moi University and I'm a student. And one thing I love particularly
Are
talking
you
about.
okay mentally as a Moi student?
Not really, just surviving.
Just surviving.
Yeah,
One thing you particularly like talking about is
ideas.
mm-hmm.
So when people talk about politics, religion, entertainment, things like movies and shows, you've heard of Adolescence, the big hit on Netflix, and art, basically everything. I believe there is always an underlying philosophical dogma or doctrine that can explain it. And
Yes.
I love tracing ideas back to philosophy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is the heart of our conversation today.
Yeah.
So, as you've seen our title, the title is Do Ideas Matter?
Yeah. Or
right?
Ideas have consequences.
Do ideas have consequences?
Yeah.
And how far are these consequences?
Yeah.
Do we carry them? Do we bear them as a society or individually?
Mm.
That's our conversation today, right? And because you have said that every single idea has a philosophical background, right? It's anchored in philosophy. Our conversation will be very philosophical, right? So let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
Why do you think people, when I say people, I mean people in our current time, seriously undermine how not only philosophy but also ideas have shaped our culture?
Yeah. One of the reasons it's because philosophical ideas take time to evolve and mature into, mature into the arena of politics, the arena of entertainment, the arena of economics, and they usually develop in the background, so it's easy to ignore them. But for example, the culture in which we inhabit, which is postmodernism, is an idea that has been going on for more than 150 years. We'd say 100 to 200 years. But right now, when you go to the education system, especially in the West, the political system, the media, everything can be explained on the basis of that idea. But it's taken a long time to mature into reality.
So one, people don't have patience.
Yeah.
And two, nobody's as discerning to look what is happening in the background.
Yeah.
Because what is happening in the forefront can be quite blinding, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and also they when human beings become possessed by these ideas, it's often like subconscious, and you might fail to notice. Yeah. But when we talk about it, you realize that, or some of the audience will realize that it's actually something they express or talk about, or use as a mode of discourse in their conversations.
Okay. So you've mentioned a big word, postmodernism.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is postmodernism? And because it begins with post, it means it's coming after something.
Yeah.
So what was modernism and what is postmodernism?
So in philosophy, kuna these big words, but the reason they're big words is because it's often the human beings have this attitude. We have an attitude of simplifying things, oversimplifying things. Oversimplifying things, and especially in philosophy. So postmodernism can be is easily oversimplified, and it's because also as I said, it's an idea that's been evolving over 150
50
years
years.
to 200 years. So you can't really pin it down,
There you have
and
to
you cannot reduce
summarize
it
too
to a
much.
statement
Yeah.
or a set of, a small set of principles. But for the purpose of this discussion, I think we can make an attempt.
Yes.
And because we
Please.
are not,
Please.
philosophers, is just trying to discuss this, we can use the philosophers that popularized the idea. So one of them is Michel Foucault. He's a French, and later on we'll see what he was
stood
mainly
for.
about.
Yeah.
But he describes post-modernism as an attitude of skepticism. So you doubt everything. And also he basically, you see, modernism has developed after Newton and Descartes.
Isaac
Newton, yeah. So famously discovered gravity, but more than that, we could easily say he discovered physics and mathematics.
Hey, Chopi.
So yeah, it's from Newton going forward that science was really established.
Yeah.
And from there we have the respect for objective truth, absolute truths,
in
objective and
modernism.
absolute truth. Yeah, in modernism we have we respect the individual and reason, the ability of man to intuit objective truths and discover them through science.
Okay.
And also social progress from that discovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So postmodernism is the destruction
of
the
modernism.
skepticism of all of this.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no way to know truth except truth is subjective.
Yeah.
It's your truth versus mine.
My truth. Yeah. So so modernism could be summarized by science, individuality, social progress, and I forget the last one.
And say human reason, absolute truths.
Yeah, absolute truths,
social
right?
progress. Yeah.
And then postmodernism is question all that.
Yeah, question all that.
So question all the science that you think you know.
Yeah.
Question all the.
Yeah, like approach all of these things
with skepticism.
The establishment, the political, the economic, the scientific establishment that we currently inhabit. Approach it with skepticism, an attitude of skepticism.
So what do you think? So right now we live in postmodernism, clearly, because we also have that skeptic mindset. So what do you think were the driving forces, both intellectually and culturally, that lead to the breeding of postmodernism?
Yeah, so we said it's a very old idea. Began in the late 1800s. So we can trace it back to four main guys, four main philosophers. And both two of them are German, two of them are French.
Okay.
So we can start in a chronological order by discussing Karl Marx. Then we'll discuss Friedrich Nietzsche. Those are the two Germans, obviously from the names.
Yes.
And then the French ones are Jean-Paul Sartre, who's the first one, and then Michel Foucault.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since we'll not be able to understand postmodernism without talking about these people, let's go chronologically how you have stated. So who is Karl Marx? Why did his ideas matter? What were his ideas and why did they matter? And how did they affect the culture?
Yeah. So I believe something that's like to give the devil his due. We'll try to describe their beliefs and why they are popular, first of all. Because they're very popular, especially in the 20th century. And give them
Karl Marx.
Yeah. No, najua.
Machopi. Potelas ni machopi.
So give them their intellectual and moral credibility and also see where they fall short.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start by placing them in their historical context, because we look at these people and they're heavily influenced by their history, their current state of affairs. So yeah, it's important to discuss their upbringing and everything. Okay. So Karl Marx, to start off, he's a German. Amezaliwa Leipzig in 1818. Yeah. So he's probably the most famous of the four. Yeah. And his ideas have been studied thoroughly in universities in social sciences and how they were heavily applied in 20th century.
Yeah.
They were applied in Russia, China, Germany, everywhere. They are being applied in North Korea as we speak.
Kim Jong-un in his philosophical
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah. To bring it even closer home, Ujamaa in Tanzania is based on Marxism and socialism. Yeah. So his ideas are very popular and attractive, especially economically. Yeah. So he's born to a family of theologians and pastors.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's a PK.
Yeah, he's a PK. And it's an interesting theme across all of them.
All of them are PKs?
Not really, but especially, yeah, all of them. You could say all of them, but especially like, I'd say for sure, Karl Marx and Friedrich Nietzsche.
Okay, PKs.
Yeah,
PK ni
PKs.
pastor's kid. Please, watu wenye wajokoka, get to know.
Yeah, I'm also a PK.
Hey!
So watch out.
Watch out, you might be the next philosopher. Let's start writing the books now.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's a PK, and then but he's like most PKs, he's very antagonistic, right? Yeah, he's stubborn.
Like most.
Yeah, so at a very young age, he becomes like politically radicalized, and
in
for
Germany.
that reason, for that reason, he's exiled from Germany, goes to France, he's exiled again, and eventually lands in England. Yeah.
Where he settled now.
Yeah, he settled in England. He's accepted, and you'll see why in a little bit. But yeah. So in England, he writes his most famous work called Das Kapital. Yeah. So.
Das Kapital.
Yeah. So that's his historical background. Now we can discuss his main ideas.
Yes.
Yeah. Which brought us here.
Yes. Yeah. We like ideas better than the people.
So one of his main ideas, very simple, is atheism. Yeah. They believe that God doesn't exist. Yeah. So from a very young age in high school, he's a devotee of someone called Ludwig Feuerbach. Okay. He's a German. So Ludwig Feuerbach is famously described as the father of modern atheism. Yeah. So when you listen to modern atheists like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, you'll hear, in the study Ludwig Feuerbach, you'll hear echoes of his.
He's speaking through them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're speaking through him.
He opened the doors for them to walk.
Exactly. So Ludwig Feuerbach believed that humans have the tendency to draw out of themselves the ideal, so an ideal self-understanding. Okay. So for example, ukifanto, you always think, you always want to imagine you're the smartest, of course, the most loving,
the most competent.
Yeah. So when you imagine about intellect, you idealize the most all-knowing, all-intelligent person. When you're thinking about love, you imagine the most loving person. And when you're imagining about power, you imagine the most powerful person. And that's, idealized self-version becomes God. So why are you doing this? You do this, and then you come and pray and worship this intellect to give you what you gave it. Okay? So you want power, you want success, and you want love in return. So that's Feuerbach's belief. And it's very popular among modern atheists. Like in an effort to describe or do away with God. Yeah. So Karl Marx really loved this. Yeah. So he starts off like that as an atheist, as a believer of this Feuerbach theories. And then he says that in most of societies, this is how God is viewed. And now this is his second and most important point. The reason people believe this is because they are economically oppressed.
Okay.
So, and therefore we have this famous saying by Karl Marx: the religion is the opium of the masses.
What does opium do?
So opium in medicine is a plant that's used to extract opioids that are painkillers.
Okay.
So if you're admitted to hospital and the usual drugs, the usual painkillers, the NSAIDs and the paracetamols don't work, we now employ opioids. Yeah,
So
in the ladder of pain management, they're very effective. Like they're the most effective.
like morphine.
Yeah, like morphine. Exactly.
Hey.
Nice.
Go class. So like morphine.
Yeah, so like morphine.
Yay.
Yeah. So the reason he described it as an opium of the masses because like morphine was opium was being abused in London a lot. So there were these pubs.
Drug dealer walikuwa kazi.
People would go and numb their pain and suffering.
So now he felt like religion was doing that for the people.
Yeah, because of this suffering, people are using religion to numb and become desensitized to their
reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so now you have religion being an opium of the masses, but also other things like entertainment. You have today Marxists, people who believe in the theory, describe something like football, as a means of numbing.
Really?
Your pain,
a distraction. Come to the front.
Except people, Arsenal fans, we are very happy.
Yeah, come to the front, you opioids of the masses.
Yeah. And now, after that, so he describes religion as the opium of the masses, and then he describes things like religion, politics, entertainment as he calls them the superstructure underneath a substructure or the core of human experience, which is economics. So the economic part is the substructure, and it's surrounded by a superstructure of religion, politics. So when politicians vie for seats, they always promise people economic prosperity.
Yeah.
Sindio? Yeah, the housing project, everything. Universal health coverage. Sindio?
Unasikia leakage.
Yeah, and then they get into power and protect their personal economic interests. So that's a superstructure. It's supposed to maintain and run the economic engine that's there as long as it benefits them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So apart from religion being the opium of the masses, what else were Marx's ideas? Yeah.
So we described atheism. The very important one is the stratification between superstructure and the substructure. So his basic idea, honestly, it's like he believes when you look at history, you can explain everything based on like a battle or a war between the oppressed and the oppressors. Okay. That's how he views history throughout. So ukiangalia ancient times, it was between slaves and the slave masters. Yeah. Now ukiangalia today, it's between those people who benefit from capitalism and the working class.
Yes.
So that's history too. Karl Marx.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's something good to be said. There's something positive to be said about that.
Like, what do you think Marx got right about his analysis of society in general? What things he got right and what things that he got wrong also?
Yeah. So one of the things, let me use an illustration to describe what he got right. So when you look at modern medicine, inventions are being made all the time. The problem with this, medical advancements is when a drug is discovered, it has, whoever discovered has a patent of 20 years before a generic version is made. So if you're sick, whenever you fall sick, you're praying that the most effective, the most efficacious drug was discovered in 2005.
For sure.
Otherwise, you can't afford it.
Yeah.
You have to wait 20 years. Can you imagine an old person when Viagra was discovered?
Oh,
it was like 20 years. I have to wait 20 years until I can get a boner. Yeah.
You waited years until I get a boner. It's crazy. So he couldn't even partake of Viagra. It was too expensive.
It was too expensive.
So let's not go Jenny.
Yeah. Until the China come
to. Sad, man.
Sucks for capitalism.
Sad.
Yeah.
So that's what Marx was against.
Marx was so against that.
So you would say that Marx was like the father of, I don't know whether to call it classism, but I think he made it very obvious that there's there's high class, middle class, and low class, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, the low class are being lulled to sleep by this point. The high class, superstructure. Am I in the class?
Yeah.
I'm getting in the
That is
class.
that, yeah.
And they're being given things like entertainment and religion to continue to keep their minds asleep while
Distracted. Yeah.
while the ones with the superstructures keep getting wealthier, keep getting money on the backs of these ones. And that was what he was totally against.
Yeah, and you can use so many illustrations to justify that position. You can say Jeff Bezos, I'll invent Amazon Entertainment. Apple has Apple TV.
Yeah.
Like these are billionaires. They're the top 10%. Exactly.
So what was Marx's solution to this? So what he said, okay, kuna hii, he sets a problem.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he gave a solution.
Atheism is one of them.
Don't believe in God. Yeah.
That's one of them.
Yeah, okay.
That's in fact the supreme one, because we'll see that government, the constitution, everything, morality is based on religion.
And if I think about England, especially in the 1800s, religion was so potent.
Yeah.
And rejecting religion was almost rejecting identity.
Yeah.
And it would have been hard, one, for the masses to do so. And then it would be also it would free them to also think very critically of what their government is doing in like apart from the religious mindset that was communal.
Yeah. And as much as there are positive things to be said about religion, when you look at Kenya, there are a few things religion has.
I was about to ask that. Yeah. So do you still think that religion is the opium of the masses, as Karl Marx had said?
No, I don't. I think there's a very big shortcoming and problem with the theory. So here's the thing.
Sure. Tell us.
Yeah. So when you reduce everything to social injustice, which is Marxism, you really don't. It's like some people describe it as an intellectual or philosophical cowardice.
Really?
Yeah.
To reduce everything to social justice.
And I completely agree. Because
an intellectual cowardice.
Yeah. You're failing to grapple with the real cause of suffering, which is life itself.
So sisi activists tunatuambia nini?
Like across all religions, it is obvious that life is suffering.
Yeah. Suffering is an integral part of life.
It is inherent, yeah. It's integral. And even imagine if you are, Elon Musk. You achieved the epitome of economic success.
Yeah.
That doesn't,
spare
you from the, foundational limitations of life. Yeah. You'll still die. You'll fall sick. Your loved ones and friends
will fall sick. You will die. Yeah. And your money couldn't do anything to stop that process.
Yeah, it can't do much.
The thrownness of life.
That's the cowardice.
Okay. So maybe I'm very, one of my vices is I could fall very deep into the holes of the social justice movement. And I have to also unplug sometimes because it's a lot of do. Yeah. But at the heart of it is we're trying to fight something that is an integral, like you said, an integral part of life.
Yeah, and I'm not saying social justice does not exacerbate suffering.
It does. It reduces the meaning.
But
there'll always be an oppressor.
One of the biggest predictors of economic success or success anywhere is not race or sex or whatever. It's actually intelligence, which has a very strong biological and genetic basis.
Hey.
It's like a gift from God.
You are giving spoilers for our next episode.
Yeah.
Any spoiler?
But I feel like it must be said in this for this particular subtopic because Marxism is just there's a reason why we started with it and not the rest.
Okay. Speaking of the rest, let's move on to the next prominent figure, who was Friedrich Nietzsche. Now, personally, I like Nietzsche's work.
Yeah.
Coming from a Christian myself, it's quite hard because he's had some very, when people interpret it, it could seem very anti-Christian statements, right? Yeah. But I personally like his mind. I think he had a very, he didn't have intellectual cowardice.
He didn't. He was very intellectually, very courageous.
Very courageous. To be able to, the things that he said were absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
So let's start there. Who is Friedrich Nietzsche? what were his ideas, and where does he fall in this conversation of ideas?
Okay. So Nietzsche is a German again. He was born after Marx.
I think we should just all marry Germans and have intellectual children. So umesema intellect ni biological.
Yeah.
Get you a German.
Yeah, these guys are
Spoilers,
smart.
spoilers.
So he's born after Marx in 1844. He's also a PK.
Hey,
Yeah,
that's why I like.
He's actually he was groomed to be, to study theology. Like they realized this is a very smart kid, and we want him to be a pastor. So he joined university and then immediately abandoned religion and studied philology, which is like the study of language and the meaning of words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of them, that's another common characteristic. They love studying language.
Yeah.
The words.
I like studying languages.
Yeah.
I speak 4 languages.
So he...
Please, clap for me. And fun fact. Fun fact. Nietzsche was the youngest professor to ever live to date. Cindy, he became a professor at 24 years.
Yes.
Can you imagine being a professor at 24? Wewe uko 24 unafanya kwa nyumba? Get up! Because
there's a however.
However.
So he becomes a professor at 24, but he falls sick and he's a stubborn character. So he's expelled from university shortly after.
Yeah.
He doesn't teach for long.
Yeah. But still, professor status was attained. Amen. Hallelujah. Okay.
Yeah. So he becomes sick, and the reason Nietzsche's books are very popular is partly because he's a genius. So he's a genius, yes.
Partly because.
But he's also very sick, so he can only write and think for a few hours every day.
Yeah.
So when he's writing Beyond Good and Evil, that's book Zarathustra, the 2 books that famously capture his ideas. He writes them in aphoristics, or very short statements. So, but these statements, like you can watch a whole 2-hour lecture
on
based
one
on
of
a
these
single
statements.
statement.
Yeah.
They're very deep, and you can dissect them so a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, his main ideas.
So a very popular statement.
Yes.
That Nietzsche says.
Yeah.
But I think doesn't summarize his work. Like we said, philosophy cannot be summarized, especially with people like Nietzsche who are geniuses. You can't summarize all of his work. But one of his most popular statements is God is dead and his blood is in our hands. And what do you think he meant by that?
God is dead. We have killed him. We have killed him. And his blood is on our hands. Most people think it's a celebration. Like, wow, we have killed God.
Jokes on
but
you.
For Nietzsche, it was a psychological warning. So
it was like a prophet.
Modernism, with the advent of science, had elevated intellect to the highest level, and that's replaced
modernism. So the highest good, or to be highly successful in modernism, you had to be the most intellectual.
Yeah. But also, like, society, to achieve its, like,
societal respect,
ultimate success. Like the only way was replace God with science, replace God with technology, and follow that path to the end.
Which for them was purely intellectual. So that if you follow God, you are not intellectual.
Yeah. Now the problem with killing God,
yeah, and having his blood.
Yeah, you see, God in this in the history of human beings is the foundation of morality and truth.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you kill him, you at the same time destroy the foundation that is of morality and truth.
So you lack a moral compass. And truth becomes subjective to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens when you kill God? You destroy the foundation of objective truth, objective morality. So God, in the Christian tradition, is the summum bonum, the ultimate good.
Summum bonum.
Yeah. So if you
cut out your part. Eddie, cut out your part. God is a summum bonum manzi hapo.
Yeah, and he's also so the source of all truth, the source of all morality. You kill him, you have no basis for objective truth, objective morality. So you leave a gap, And when you look at history, that gap has been filled either by 2 things: nihilism and totalitarianism. So nihilism is the belief that there's no inherent meaning in life, and therefore the pursuit of pleasure is paramount. Yeah.
Which is so funny to me, but the side note, because if life has no meaning, then why do we pursue anything else? Sasa tukae tu.
Yeah.
But please continue with the lecture.
That's why initially totalitarianism was attractive.
Yeah.
So totalitarianism is, elevating the political order or the economic order. So you have Marxism coming in
the second time around.
So Karl Marx has developed, communism, and now Nietzsche has come and killed God. So now let's take Karl Marx's ideas and make them our source of all truth.
Substructures and those superstructures, let's take them and now give no moral bounds. So there's no boundaries. So you can free reign.
Yeah.
Free reign. Yeah. You want to oppress? Kanyaga.
Yeah, and then he describes this idea of so once you have no objective morality and objective truth, you have what is called perspectivism, according to Nietzsche. So perspectivism is I have my own belief, you have your own belief, they have their own beliefs, but now let's see who has, by asserting your will over mine, or through the clash of the wills, whoever comes out on top gets to decide what will follow or what we will abide
with what means sheer force.
Just sheer force, and that's it.
But then how will we critique? So how then the strong have the critical points only. So if you're not strong, so if they have their beliefs and I have my belief and you have your belief, how can I critique your belief?
So you can't critique. Critique is actually truth based in. It's like that's why Nietzsche didn't really like Christianity, especially the New Testament, because Christianity encourages like compassion, love, forgiveness. Those are words Nietzsche didn't fancy.
Vocabulary yake.
Yeah, it's like, now you have been overcome by a stronger will. Now you're asking this person who's stronger to have mercy on you.
So you felt like those emotions are inferior and that they should be done away with.
Yeah, you should stop seeking forgiveness and try to assert your own will and dominance.
Yeah. After Nietzsche, we fall to another philosopher. At the time, it's a French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre. Now, his work confuses me, honestly. I think this is where my religious worldview just shows up big time,
Okay.
So tell us, who is he? Describe the man. Who is he? What are his ideas?
Yeah. So he's French. He's born in 1905. So yeah, and he's actually, like, if you study social sciences, study philosophy, of the four, he's like the most loved. Partly because his ideas are very attractive.
Yes, that's why I've said,
Yeah.
If you love him,
especially if you have something against Christianity.
Yeah.
He's
and actually not just Christianity, all religions.
All religions. He's
you
a guy
thing against religions. Yeah. You can trust him to help you.
Trust him to
navigate the waters.
Navigate beliefs. Yeah. So so he comes, like, you see, we're describing them in a chronological order. So atheism has been, promoted and it's permeating. Yeah. And in the intellectual circles of France, he's like a genius. He went to this school in France called the Superior Normal School.
Hey!
Yeah.
Yes,
so the cream de la cream of France.
Yes, you are polling stations.
Yeah, Airland Alliance.
Hey! Lenana.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the Alliance, and then he starts studying language again.
Yeah.
Like his predecessors.
Find a German who studies language. You are safe. No plug. Ukupotel to our plug on how to have intelligent offspring.
Yeah. So Anna study in Superior Normal School, and then he writes his big books. So Being and Nothingness is one of them.
Book is so confusing, but sidebar.
And he writes it after, like, he's not only like a writer, he's a playwright, he's a social activist.
So he's a creative.
Yes, he's a creative. Yeah. And he was a big critic of, Nazis and World War II. So this book actually is written after World War II. His main idea, he's credited with existentialism. Existentialism. And basically, you want me to describe it?
Of course, these are big words. What is existentialism?
Yeah. So it's a movement. Again, it's a movement. Begins with that, but so many philosophers contribute to it.
To the work, yeah.
Yeah. His main belief was existence precedes essence.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Najua hiyo imekutupa kizungumkuti
Like in a
kidogo.
sound abstract, but it's
Yeah.
very obvious when you describe, because essence are these ideals, are these norms, are these patterns the society
has
provides. And then you as an individual are supposed to conform to them. Like when you're growing, you're told by your parents, this is how you're supposed to behave. And you behave like
This
that.
is appropriate,
You go
this
to
is
church
inappropriate.
and you're told this is how you're supposed to act.
Funga miguu msichana.
These are the values that you're supposed to exemplify.
Msichana afanyangi hivyo.
Yeah. This is how you're supposed to dress and talk. So that's essence. Being or existentialism is your, what you bring to the table, like your feelings, your knowledge, your beliefs, and
so those things are supposed to come before.
Your freedom is very important, or your exercise of freedom.
That's where Nani gets me.
Yeah,
such gets me, and I see why it would be very appealing, because what he puts in the throws is, so if I'm supposed to properly be myself, I have to precede societal norms, right? I have to work outside of them, because just conforming to them is not true existence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
you're living a lie.
You're living a lie in bad faith. He calls it bad faith.
Yeah, you're living in bad faith.
Yeah, you're living in bad faith. So in the heart of existentialism is radical freedom from societal pressures, freedom from the stress that comes from the world in general, and just choosing to be you in good faith. I'm doing this because I want to do it, and not because society said, or this person has influenced, or nini. So if Sat was alive today, influencers hawangekuwa na exist. Angewatandika. Angesema unakopa influencer. You're not yourself.
You're not living authentically.
You're not living authentically because you're copying somebody else's essence. Mko class. Kama mko class, mnajua hasa how this could be very freeing for somebody who is against religion, because at the heart of religion is bounds and boundaries, right? Yeah. So because God gives that, because he says, I'm the creator, you're the creation. Yeah. This is how.
So like the government has set some rules and some way of, citizens supposed to live
act,
and act. So that's one way of essence. Your parents have set, a conduct that you're supposed to abide by. But most importantly, God, who is the source of all, objective morality.
Yeah.
He's the supreme, like authority.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's the supreme above the government, above,
completely transcendent.
Yeah, above your parents.
Yeah.
So if you want to, if you're a Satrian, you can't be authentic if God exists.
If God exists. Yeah. And it is so timely, because from Nietzsche's writing, God has died. So Satrianism comes at a perfect time when people are starting to abandon the faith after Nietzsche. So it works perfectly in a flow. So kuna atheism, God is dead. So we have asserted that for sure. We are free. And now we are free to be whatever we want. Hey, panga after panga. So success.
This is something I haven't really wrapped my head around, but it's manifesting itself today. Even your neurological and mental capacities, if they come in the way of your freedom or your authenticity,
so you're acting in bad faith.
You're acting in bad faith.
Sasa tufanye nini?
Your biology. If science is suggesting
if my own biology
that your own heart or your own freedom is totally against, then you're living in bad faith.
And I think Satrianism goes back to what you were saying about nihilism and totalitarianism, that something has to fill that gap, that if God has died and we have killed him, then something has to step into that gap. And what Satrianism is offering us is, if you are completely and radically free, you become God. So you set what you want, right? So now you become God.
Yeah.
But then
and he says it, if God exists, I'm not free, but I am free. Therefore, God doesn't exist.
God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But then I could throw back things at him, but we can use it for another video.
Yeah.
I have some critiques about his work,
Yeah.
right? Which we can talk about in another video.
Yeah.
But he says his most famous statement that existence precedes essence.
Essence, yeah.
So how do you think that contrasts with a religious worldview? Because right now, I think in Kenya and generally in the world, there's always been religious worldviews. They've never ceased to exist, even though these philosophers came up with such amazing work and potent conversation and ideas, but religion still remains. So how do they contrast?
So he what he does is like, shifts the religious argument upside down. So in religions, especially Christianity, essence precedes existence.
Yeah.
So God, creates human beings,
Sets boundaries. Yeah.
Places this moral consciousness on their souls. They're supposed to,
Those things guide how you act.
Yeah, when they make a mistake, it shames them.
Yeah. Guilt.
It comes with guilt, and you're supposed to listen to this voice and follow it. So Sat does the opposite. He says, no, you don't have to listen to it. You have to follow your authentic self. You have to listen to your own heart and do what you find meaningful outside all of these religious provisions.
So let me throw a question back. So what did Sat do about the law? Is there a place for the law in Satanism?
So that's, I think, the problem with his philosophy.
Yeah.
Because
because I felt like it, I can't get away with it. I'm not truly free.
Yeah,
My freedom goes instantly.
There's no way you can live authentically in the true Satrian way.
Yeah.
You will fall into an existential crisis.
Because in as much as, yes, we have, because Sat is very strong about you making your choices, but we also live in a world where other people also make choices that also could directly affect you.
Yeah.
So what do we do about that? Like parenting.
Yeah, he actually describes this as hell.
Yes,
like
he says
people are hell.
Yeah, he says other people are hell. So that's now the reason why you cannot live your paradise is because other people exist on this earth.
They will judge you.
And they'll judge you. And they will,
we listen but we don't judge.
Hakuna hiyo kwa Satanism. We listen and we judge kwa hii dunia.
Yeah. We watch, we listen, and we judge.
I think I can talk about Sat for hours because he's the most confusing one for me. Existentialism is the most, I think, has the biggest loopholes for me. It's like glaring. It's like Stroman's argument, yeah.
Because it's also the most attractive.
The most attractive to most people. Because anyone who offers you ultimate freedom offers you to be God. And to be God has to be the ultimate kind of desire that we all want.
Yeah.
Wink wink kwa Kristo, mshasikia sauti ya devil in the garden? Yeah. Alisema nini? You'll know good and evil. You'll be just like God. Sorry, I'm preaching on the side. Continue. So the fourth one, after Sat, we have another interesting character. Michel Foucault.
Yeah. Kama hujaisikia like Karl Marx, I don't think you've ever heard of Michel Foucault.
Yeah. Foucault, I think, was the people who
least popular of them all.
Yeah. I had to dig.
But he's the most impactful, actually.
In postmodernism.
Because he takes everything these other people have suggested,
I can feel the juice,
and presented, and combined it with his basic tenets. So he produces the final product. Okay, so describe the man. Tell us his ideas. Again, he's a French, born in 1926. He's the most recent. Like, yeah, we unaweza pata video zake hata YouTube. Alipata cameras. He was alive in the reign of cameras. He went to the same school as Sat. So the superior. Hey, Machopi. Machopi. Bye. Yeah. Did he also learn language? He did. He's actually he loves language. His intellectual hero was Nietzsche. Hey. Yeah. Okay. He's the main criticizer of, like, his main criticism was on language. Like, he describes it as modes of discourse, like the way people argue, the words they use. That's his main argument. Why would you use that word? Therefore, this is what you mean. When you look at wokeism and the criticism of pronouns, it's very Foucault in nature. Okay. Yeah. All right. But his philosophy begins with something he engaged with called archaeology of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like digging in archaeology. You're digging at the sites. So when you're doing archaeology, what you realize is that you're digging up a city. You discover a city underneath it. You go deeper, another city.
Yeah.
So you discover layers of history. The deeper you go. Yeah. So you can when you consider the sexual landscape, for example, there are things we believe today that were different from the 19th century.
Yeah, of course.
The medieval can go as far back as you'd like.
Yeah.
And then you realize they're different. Like our ideas on sexuality
are
have
so
changed
different
over time. So that's Foucault's favorite discovery.
Okay.
It's like there's really no objective moral value. There's just there's a structure of power that seems to construct and design rules and laws that favor them and discriminate or oppress those they are ruling or dominating over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned power, and Foucault sees power everywhere. He sees
Everywhere.
He sees everything as a source of power. You just have to.
As a function of power, as a source of power.
Yes. Do you think that's a helpful way to view society? Do you even think it's naive?
It's very destructive.
Explain.
So one of the things it has done is it has destroyed the hierarchy of competence, which most people.
Hierarchy of competence is insane. It's insane,
I know, because
whoa, whoa! You just shot them in the head.
It's the hierarchy of competence.
You have shot them.
I know
you
won't say it's the patriarchy.
I don't say that, but I know where you're going.
Or the dominance hierarchy. But
we're going into the patriarchy. Let's go into the patriarchy.
I'll describe it as a hierarchy of competence. So, it's biologically explainable. Like it's hundreds of millions old, and it's some people would say it's a source of oppression and victimization.
Yes, but which it can be.
It can be, but mostly I think it's a source of advancement and a source of hope and like
hope. Gaga has just said the patriarchy is a source of hope. Mukairada kwa class.
Yeah, it's something we can trust in to advance as a society. Yeah.
Okay. You need a whole other episode on its own. Me and him have had countless conversations about this.
Yeah.
And I'm still on the fence about it.
Yeah, so Foucault views this as a function of like the hierarchy. The competence hierarchy is a function of power.
Okay.
And competence itself is power. It's not predicated on, what you describe as competence. It's just white people ruling over black people, men ruling over women. Yeah. It's heterosexuals.
Murdering the minority.
Yeah, heterosexuals, ruling over homosexuals.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever is in power gets to determine the moral landscape.
Okay. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. Which is true. So when he says power is in everything, then he fails to see the dominance hierarchy and how it exists. So I think my my last question about Foucault would be, so how do you think, because you've said he took the other philosophers' work and he gave it wording and meaning that has properly explained the landscape of postmodernism. Yeah. So how do you think that his ideas and his thinking has shaped the discourse of gender, sexuality, and or race?
I'll describe that in an example I saw on YouTube the other day. So this guy he's a journalist. He goes to interview college students at a campus. He's
I know this guy.
You know him?
You want to sit on the table?
Yeah. So initially in his work, he's a big MAGA guy. Yeah. So initially in his activism, he's around 30 years old. He's white, obviously.
Of course.
And he's around 6 feet tall. So he goes to this campus that's very liberal, that's very Foucault in nature.
He goes to Foucault schools.
Yeah. This is like the superior normal.
Yeah, Foucault.
Yeah. So he asks the students, if I said I was a woman, if I describe myself, if I identified as a woman, what would you say? Guys, immediately say, as long as it's fine,
long
as
as
long
you're
as that's
happy.
what you claim to be,
Yeah.
you're good. And then he says, if I said I was an Asian woman, I
I
hesitate kiasi, but okay, as long as that's what you believe, that's cool.
really
Yeah, just live,
live
be
your
you,
truth.
be you. And then he says, whatever I said, I was 6, and he's 6 foot, now he's 6'5"
6'5" Asian woman.
Asian woman. So they hesitate long, like it's actually something you can go and watch. And people are like, okay, that's a bit controversial, but yeah, as long as that's what you claim to be, that's cool. Basically, you can
Claim.
manipulate. You're welcome to manipulate language, manipulate biology, manipulate, power, to suit your needs.
Yeah.
And now it finds, now you have, the will to power.
I know where you're going.
The my existence preceding my essence. And you have Marx maybe a bit further, but mostly
Nietzsche's work
Nietzsche's and Sartre.
Yeah.
You're asserting your will
over
over the
others.
less
Yeah.
powerful, and you're being your most authentic.
And you're using language.
You're coming to Foucault and using language as a tool of power.
The tool.
Yeah.
You may catch what he has said. I hope you're catching. I hope you're catching on, because if you're catching on, pole, man.
Yeah.
Pole. So I think to wrap up this session, it has been a walk through history
Yeah.
of the greatest philosophers we've ever seen, and how their work has determined our current cultural era, right?
Yeah.
So I think my last question, maybe my last, I feel like I always have more questions, is, so tell us, do you think ideas shape our reality? Because these were just ideas that they had, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we see how we can think about these ideas. But at the beginning, you talked about how some people subscribe to these ideas subconsciously. Do you think they affect us in reality? And how do they?
Yeah, I feel like they affect everyone on an individual level. They affect, the state of affairs in a country or even in civilization. The most obvious manifestation of this is the 20th century. So Marxism, communism is implemented in various states across the world.
In a Soviet.
And in a span of 20 to 30 years, the theory, leads to the death of millions of people.
Millions,
yeah. We know Nazism because it's the most famous.
6 to 8
million
people.
But most people don't know, like in Russia, like 20 million people died.
Under Stalin.
Hey. In China, under Mao, like 40 to 50 million people died. In North Korea,
in 1 century.
We don't know how many people are dying in North Korea right now.
Because they've blocked out all media.
Yeah. Today we have the gender ideology. They believe that your biology is fluid.
Yeah.
And you can
gender is a social construct.
And it's not evident that people voted in Trump the other day because for most people, one of the reasons they did was the gender ideology was running amok. And
they were sick of it. Yeah.
But it's still a fight Trump is engaging in. He hasn't completely won, but yeah, in England, Juicy, some kids in preschool were expelled because they used the wrong pronouns.
Yeah.
Like preschool kids, can you imagine? So obviously, these ideas have
affected.
Yeah.
They stem into reality.
Yeah.
Even though we don't know that we are holding into.
Now they are becoming obvious. Like in the 18s and the 1900s, they're just ideas that were being discussed in bookshops and universities
and libraries.
But now they've spilled over into the public sphere.
So what do you think should be our next steps forward? So of course this conversation is part of it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever your ideas are, you can trace them back to a philosopher. And because the work has been done of showing the pros and the cons of this philosopher's work, knowing them is one thing. Knowing your ideas, that is, because we will subconsciously subscribe to an idea. Me, I was very Foucault. Yeah. I was very Foucault before I got born again. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Me and the French were tight like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So, of course, knowing what the philosophy is that we subscribe to is important. Yeah. What else do you think can be done to be able to help us not just blindly subscribe to things that we don't even know how far it can go?
Yeah.
and how much detriment it can be.
After discussing the philosophical roots and the consequences, I think the next thing is discussing the alternative, which is religion. Because all of them, as you can see, began with atheism.
As a
declaration of God's
rebellion
death.
towards religion.
Yeah. So what is religion's place? Does it have also its intellectual and moral credibility?
Yeah.
And what are the shortcomings?
Yeah.
So that should be the next discussion.
Yeah. So let me ask this final question. What are some of the consequences of subscribing to these ideologies? Do they have consequences, first of all?
They do. They do. I feel like
the patriarch.
The when you think about personality, which is something we'll discuss later.
Oh, that's a good episode. We're going to talk about that.
So it's important to understand the philosophical environment or ecosystem in which you exist, because your personality can either
draw you towards particular philosophies.
Yeah, most especially like people who are high in agreeableness and empathy are drawn to these ideas. So it's important to understand these ideas so that you don't subconsciously
just
subscribe to them.
Yeah. Okay, so today we require setting the ground. I like how you said because of this conversations, we'll probably end up talking about religion. And if it has intellectual capabilities or credibility at all, even, because we've talked about the rebellion against this, but what are they rebelling against? So it will be an important conversation to talk about religion. And then also moving forward, talking about things like, so these ideologies, who gravitates towards them easier? How do they affect us? How do they affect our minds, our hearts, and how we view each other? Because they do affect our interaction with each other. Thank you so much, Gaiko, for coming. This is a conversation that we have bred in our conversations for so long. It's been a podcast in the making all the time. Our friends in the background hate when we have this conversation because we clearly shut out everybody else. I'm new to this world. Gaiko has introduced me to this world and I'm new to it, and I'm just like, I feel like I've subscribed to Marxism at some point. I feel like I've subscribed to especially Foucault. I subscribe to him a lot, again, because I'm such a huge language person and words type of person. I break down words. I like it. It's my game. It's my little game. I like it. Of course, I subscribe to a little bit of Nietzsche about freedom. Freedom appeals to everyone. The one who's the biggest is a bigger satire to me, or not even satire. He's a more of a complex. Is Jean-Paul. But it's been a good conversation. So I think now I pose a question back to our audience. Do you think these ideas matter? Have you subscribed to these ideas without knowing? Ulikuwa unajua you and Germans mko close hivyo. Ulikuwa unajua that in your head, somewhere deep within your head, you subscribe to the idea that you are God, that you can attain the highest ultimate version of yourself, that it's within you and you can bring it out, because you're manifesting things within us is Nietzsche. You're subscribing to Nietzsche. Manifesting nijaanza juzi. Nani Nietzsche alikuwa ameshatushow kitambo, alikuwa ametupatia Marx. Na copy tu Marx yake. Anyway, thank you so much for coming again. We're going to have follow-up episodes, because I'm sure people will have questions, especially about nihilism, because I think it's becoming more and more attractive to people nowadays that life has no purpose, and then let's just do what we want. So come and talk about nihilism also in the later episodes, but we've talked about the root of nihilism, where it came from, right? So now you know, when you have a nihilistic approach, you have been birthed by Nietzsche.
You have been baptized
into Nietzscheism. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Before you leave, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Tell your grandma, tell her grandma, tell her bestie, tell whoever is in her circles that Pointel Podcast is where it's at. We're going to bring more edifying, educative episodes to you. Build you up. Hii maisha si kila siku tembea unauza madem rada. Madem wamechanuka. Tumechanuka siku hizi. Tunaona tunasikiza Nietzsche. What are you talking to us about? Yeah, you want to find intelligent men, and we will educate intelligent men here at Pointel. So thank you so much for sticking around. We want to hear from you, of course. Send us a DM on our Instagram at Pointel Podcast and at Pointel TV. We are ready to hear from you. Do you want to give your social in case they want to ask you particular questions yourself? No, he does not. You can ask me. I like that he's very honest. No, I'm not giving my socials. Demukuje muniambie kuhusu nihilism kwa DM. Remember, I am your host, Cecilia. I love having these conversations with you. I love having conversations about ideas. This is my favorite type of content. Sawa sawa. I don't think we're able to move past the fact that you just said no.
I might have no socials. So.
He might not have socials. Yeah. Maybe he's just an intelligent being who has, no social. I am. Have a good day. Bye.